Welcome to Go for Side Effects. I'm your host, Kevin Simon. Y'all know my co-host, John. John, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Hey, y'all.
I had to bring another Navy guy on since we kicked y'all's ass in football. And so I got Karl, and Karl just isn't somebody that I found. I actually know Karl. I've been cutting his hair for I don't even know how many years now, but it's been for a while. And I don't know why he's wearing a ball cap on the show, but hey, he's probably covering up my haircut. Karl, how you doing, man?
Good. How you doing, sir? Good to see you
I'm
again.
doing good. And it's kind of funny because I only realized what in the past year that you were in Desert Storm also. And so we
Correct.
got
Correct.
talking
Just
about it,
casual
and he was like,
conversation.
yeah, and he was like, hey, come on. I'll come on the show and talk. And I want him to because he was on the USS America at that
America.
time.
hmm
All right. So let's go ahead and let's talk about when you went in and what all you did.
Okay. So I was a native of Pennsylvania, and brothers and sisters, family, all members of the military, Army. Stepfather was in the Navy. Uh, Father was in the Navy. So up until I went in, I thought I was going in the Army. And lo and behold, that famous movie Top Gun came out. And I was like, oh, let's 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 try that. So signed up. I was in the delayed entry program for a year, so getting a little taste of the Navy. Um, you know, uh, so I went in 2 weeks right after high school. So June of '88, I went in. Didn't want to waste no time. Didn't want to sit around summer and think about it. Boom, right off to Great Lakes, Illinois. Uh, did my 8 weeks in boot camp. And one thing they told me is make sure you get a rate when you go in. Don't go in as a bosun's mate or undesignated. So I went in for aviation electronics. Didn't like that. Didn't like the program. So halfway through the school in Millington, Tennessee, is where they sent anybody that was going in the aviation business. Uh, I switched my rate to aviation ordnance. I think they gave me a choice of 5, which now that I think about that was kind of generous that them actually doing that instead of just throwing me with a mop in my hand and say swap the barracks for the rest of your life. So finish school, and what they do is you go to your you pick your rate, which was aviation ordnance, and then after you complete the course, then you get to choose depending on your class rate rank is what squadron you may go to. So that could be East Coast, West Coast. So I got to go to Virginia Beach, and I got an F-14 squadron, which was like, oh yeah, Top Gun, here I come. So was in Virginia Beach um, probably 2 weeks later. Drove down there. Now what they do is they stick you in a training squadron. So now you have to learn the aircraft. Now you know all the weapons that go on it. So I was in there probably about 6 months in Virginia Beach during the wintertime. Pretty cold in Virginia Beach there during winter because that just comes off the coast there. Did the 6 months, get familiar with the aircraft, familiar with the weapons, and then boom, right into my squadron, which was right across the street, VF-102 Diamondbacks. And it was probably like a month later, we're getting ready to go out on the ship. So I think it was May of '89, and so you go out for 6 months, learn your job, and I mean, I've never left. I'm never left Pennsylvania when I was younger, so it was an eye-opening experience to go out there and actually get on the flight deck and you know basically relying on everybody so you don't get killed on there because they're just areas you're not supposed to go while the planes are landing or the air boss will yell at you.
Well, I have a question about that. I do.
Sure.
Karl, I've got a good question about that. The first time you saw that first jet fly off of there, come on. You felt like you were in Top Gun, didn't you?
No,
What do you mean?
no, because it's totally it's mind blowing because you're thinking of the movie and the pilots and stuff like that, but you're actually it's 360 degrees around you, and your head's on a swivel because you just have no idea where you're supposed to be, and somebody's got you grab you on the back so you don't go in the wrong area.
Hmm.
So yeah, it is mind blowing to actually do that, because you're on a floating airport out in the middle of nowhere. You don't see land anywhere, and you're getting ready to go over to like the Mediterranean and visit the rest of the world. So you just don't have time to take it all in and learn the job. And we worked 12-hour days, 7 days a week, until we hit a port and got some R&R. But I think I worked the first 6 months. It was up on the flight deck during the daytime. They don't want to put you at night to begin with, because one wrong step and boom, you're off into the middle of the ocean out there, and more likely ain't gonna find you.
So Karl, when you're out on the flight deck, and only because I've watched various movies and some other things, I see that, and I imagine this is true, but I got to ask, the color-coded vests and everything, that's a real deal, right? So you know who belongs to what kind of group of people?
Yeah, I still have.
Oh, look at
that.
that. What'd you do?
Interesting.
Yep. So yeah, I got one of my original cranials. Yeah, but
wow.
That does make it easier that everything's color coded. Like on my shirt here, it shows all the different colors: red, green, yellow, blue, brown, white.
Okay.
They all have a signified job. Red is usually
explain
danger.
the job. Explain what color jobs mean.
Yeah.
Sure, and that can be people in the squadron, or that could be actually ship's company up on it, because there are people that are actually assigned to the ship, but then there's also groups that are assigned to each squadron. So back then, I mean, now it's more, it's all F-18s. But before we had F-18s, we had A-6s, we had F-14s, S-3s, you had helicopter squadrons, you had E-2 Hawkeyes, EA-6Bs. So, and then sometimes you get Marine squadrons on there too. So what it is, like it is now, is back then you had a whole, I guess you call it like a soup with all these different ingredients on there, and they all had to mesh, and they all, like, unfortunately, the Tomcat was designed to be a fighter bomber, but with the Soviet threat, they actually made it just a fighter jet. I mean, it could hold bombs, and eventually, over time, they learned that, hey, we need to get the most out of this plane. So they did eventually go to dropping bombs on it, but that was the end of its career, and that's probably what killed it too. Is they should have maximized the use of it in the beginning, but with the great threat of the Soviet Union, they had to use those. The AIM-54 missile that was on there was the huge one on the belly. That we called that the $1 million missile, because that's what the cost of it was back then.
Damn.
And
go ahead.
How much time? So Karl, what? Because you're Army guy. Like I've told Kevin. I mean, we josh one another back and forth. But honestly, I mean, I think those of us that are listening and watching that aren't familiar with the Navy and how things work, especially like your job, aviation ordnance. How much of your time would you actually spend on the deck as opposed to below deck? I mean, does that switch out like every couple hours? And I mean, how does that work, type of thing?
Well, if you work the day shift, your day started about 6 o'clock in the morning. Of course, you'd have to get up, whatever you're doing before your shift, get something to eat. You want to go to the gym or whatever. You basically had 12 hours on, 12 hours off. And that's 7 days a week until we got into a port. So you may go that way for a month. You may go for another 2 weeks. It just depends on what the schedule was and where they wanted the carrier to be. And of course, what was going on in the world at that time. Because until there was a conflict, you're basically, your pilots are training, landing, taking off, and you're working on an airport, a floating airport. So like when I was working the day shift, I'd get up probably like 4 o'clock, go to the gym, go get something to eat real quick, be down at the shop at 6 o'clock, get my tool belt on, my float coat, my cranial, and boom, you go up and relieve the night shift. Their toolboxes will be up there. They may have been doing maintenance, or there might have been an early flight, but you're basically want to be on time so those guys can get off the flight deck, because they either been doing night ops, they've been doing early ops, or they've been doing preventive maintenance at night. So there's always something going on.
So my question would be, The biggest question I would have is, did y'all have a McDonald's like station on the aircraft carrier where it was hamburgers, French fries, and like the Independence did?
Now there was more than one chow hole on the ship. There's a forward galley and there's an aft galley, and of course the officers have their own. Um, so it kind of separated us that far. But the thing is, you could eat 24 hours a day if you wanted to.
So wait a second. The officers and the enlisted, they don't eat together.
No,
Really?
no.
Huh?
No.
I'll be damned.
I went on
Okay.
the Independence, and the Independence literally had just a station that did hot dogs, hamburgers, and French fries all night long.
Yeah, we called it at nighttime. It was the slider station. It was up toward the front, and they would make little grease burgers or whatever just to get something to eat. Or you can get, I mean, and like I said, depending on what shift you were on, midnight was your lunchtime. So
Yeah.
Right.
you know, so you might eat dinner before you go on your shift at 6. You might eat sliders at midnight if you had a chance, and then in the morning you would eat your breakfast or whatever. So your meals would be kind of backwards if you work night shift.
I'm just a little surprised that the officers, in respect to eating chow, because if their officers have their own mess area or whatever it's termed in the Navy, does that mean they have their own cooks too?
Oh yeah,
Yes.
Really?
They have their own. Yeah, they have their own little mess hall area. Yep.
the captain has
wow.
his own cook.
What's that,
There's
Kev?
even an area where the first class petty officers, they have their own mess hall too.
No
and
kidding.
the chiefs also.
Yes.
Are-
the
Three
chiefs, yes.
different sets of.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And
That's-
the
that's-
captain
you're
had
talking-
his own cook, John. The captain had his own cook.
That just seems excessive to me. I guess
Well,
that was
you're
never
talking-
the case.
You're talking an aircraft carrier, which is 3 football fields length, and there's parts of the ship you'll never ever see. You're not. There's no reason for you to go there. Like the first cruise, halfway through the cruise, I had to go work mess hall because I was not an E4 yet, so I had to go down in the mess hall to help out the ship's company, and I spent 3 months down in a reefer getting produce and stuff like that, putting it on an elevator and raising it up to where the galley was. So even though I was part of the squadron, I had to do my duty with the ship's company. So I got to see parts of the ship that other people didn't. I mean, I was down at the very bottom, and I could hear the water hitting against the side of the ship. And so you're down there, and you're working 12 hours a day again, but inside the ship. So you just have to get used to it.
How did you feel about pulling up next to a supply ship and unwrapping?
Those were long days right there. We did a couple
long
on reps.
days.
It was like that was like a 36-hour on rep one time.
See what
Yeah,
I'm saying, John?
And basically in the hangar bay, it was like a human chain.
Yeah.
They bring it over. All this, all the weapons and stuff are coming on the helos up above, all the ammunition and stuff. And then in the hangar bays, that's where all your they were swinging it across.
And that was
the
my
pulley.
job, Carl. That was my job.
Mhm.
I sent y'all the cargo.
Yep.
I sent over gen engines, and I mean, and I tell you what,
Oh, yeah.
it is different being on a supply ship than any other ship, because a supply ship, you don't get done until everybody gets their cargo, and so
Correct.
you're just as good
And
as
you
your
might,
crew.
and like I said, most of the times we actually saw you doing it on both sides,
Yes.
where carrier be on one side bringing fuel over. Now that's the other thing too, is we had a fossil fuel carrier. We weren't a nuclear carrier, so you're not bringing just JP5 over. You're bringing fuel for the carrier itself. So double the duty for the fuel, and then all your supplies are coming over. So they got to make sure that they're all going the same speed, calm seas, and then of course there could be another ship on the other side of the supply ship. So like I said, I always saw half of that. But
so Karl, so you were in the Gulf War. Your ship was part of that. What was that like during the war?
So what was really interesting is, so I've already had one cruise under my belt. So we came back and we do our our workups for the carrier has to do its workups. It means it has to fix stuff that's wrong with it before. The squadrons go off and they go do deployments. Like we went to Reno, Nevada, which is now Top Gun. It used to be Fallon, Nevada. Not Fallon, Nevada is now Top Gun, but it just used to be Nevada out in the middle of the desert.
So that term Top Gun, that term you use, Top Gun, that's an actual for real thing. That's just not a Hollywood made up thing. That's for real?
No, that's the fighter weapons school. And that's
okay.
that has its own squadrons, and the other all the other squadrons have to train. They take some of their planes there, and they train and they learn. Not everybody goes. I mean, Top Gun was a little overrated how they did that. You know, in the middle of a cruise, just don't do that.
Okay.
So back to going. So we were actually on a NATO cruise, and the crap that was going on in the Gulf over there. We were on a NATO cruise. We were up in the North Atlantic, up near the fjords. That's where our ship was stationed to be at in case of a nuclear fallout, is up in the fjords, up near Norway. So we came back probably in October. I think it was a 2-month cruise, October, November maybe. And then they were we were catching on some of the news and crisis in the Middle East and stuff like that. And they say, okay, we're doing a quick turnaround. We weren't supposed to go out for another 6 months. So they had to do, all the squadrons had to do double time, getting all the planes ready and the logistics. And we went out right before Christmas time, and not a lot of people were happy because they were, when you get time off for the holidays, you cherish it a lot. And boom, we were out. I think like December 15th, we pulled out of Norfolk again. So when the carrier pulls out, then the squadrons go on about 2 days later when the carrier gets far enough away from shore. They land all the planes, boom, full speed going over to the Mediterranean. So we knew we weren't going to get into the Indian Ocean or the Persian Gulf in time, because the thing is, with our carrier, we were dragging a screw. So the America had 4 screws on it. So you're thinking that
I got to ask, what does that mean? We're dragging. You said screw. I don't. What does that mean?
Propeller.
The propellers.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So that's the term is screw. But one of our engines were actually down, so we were dragging it. So that you can only go so fast with that, and if you try to go faster, then you start getting a lot of vibration on the ship because you're basically dragging that propeller.
Okay.
So it's sort of like a 747. If you got one engine down, you're not going to go as fast. So we went into the Mediterranean. I think it happened in the Mediterranean, and like I said, I have to remember some of the stories, but we actually had a guy jump off the ship in the Mediterranean.
What the hell?
He was ticked off, and it was at nighttime. And the story was, he told his friends, he says, I'm ticked. I don't want to be here. I want to go home. So he went into the hangar bay. He had his swim trunks on. He went over to the elevator, and this is at nighttime, and he jumped off the elevator. Now the flight deck is probably 30 feet off the ground. So the elevator is probably a good about 20 feet off the ground, off the water. And he just jumped into the water. So somebody saw that. And of course, when that happens, you yell general quarters, man overboard. So then the carrier does a big circle, because we weren't doing flight ops or anything. We weren't practicing. We were going straight to the Mediterranean. We weren't doing any maneuvers or anything. We were going full steam toward the Gulf. So of course we had to stop and turn around, find this guy, and the captain, man, he was mad.
I bet he was.
He said this guy wanted to go home. He said he jeopardized my ship. He said no. He says you're going to go to the brig. Next port we get to, fly you off, and you're going to go to Leavenworth, captain's mast, the whole 9 deal. So he did go home, but not the way he wanted to. So we were in the Mediterranean. So you have to transition into the Suez Canal, and of course the Suez Canal is that famous waterway. Well, with a big aircraft carrier, you only got one way to go in, and you can only go so fast because it's only so deep. You have to have a tugboat on the front, one on the back to make sure. Now, I did a cruise before we went through the Suez Canal, and you usually do it during the daytime because there's no guide markers or anything. So one thing they wanted us to do is they wanted us to disguise the carrier to look like a cargo carrier, an oil tanker. So they actually closed off the hangar bays, and this was because once we got into the Red Sea, that's where we were going to start. That was close to when Desert Storm. Well, it was Desert Shield, and then when we got into the Red Sea, that was when it turned into the Desert Storm. So we disguised the ship. They put lights, certain lights on the island, and it made it look like a cargo ship. And everybody had red lenses on their flashlights.
Yeah.
So it takes approximately about 8 hours to get through the Suez Canal. And of course, you have to go in. There's a big lake in the middle, and that's where the ships go different directions. So you have to get into that lake. So basically, it's a one-way road both directions. That was probably the most nerve-wracking experience of the entire time, because now we're used to seeing. You're used to being out on the ocean, nothing around you. Now you're in the dark. You have the pumped up adrenaline that you're going to war. We've declared war. George Bush declared war. So now you've got Egypt on one side, you've got Saudi Arabia on the other side. And this is probably, and I was working night shift, and like everybody was up. So we are loading aircraft in the dark. And like I said, we don't have our flashlights have red lenses on them. And the theory is if you are standing on the flight deck and you have a cigarette in your mouth, you can see that cigarette like 2 miles away. So that's when they say the smoking lamp is out. That means that you're not allowed to smoke and all the lights are off at night. So that's where that term came from. The smoking lamp is out. So yeah, we were going through the Suez Canal. We're out there loading AIM-9s, AIM-7s, AIM-54s, making sure all the guns are working. Everybody's doing their checks on the airplanes, because as soon as we get through there, it was going to be morning, and we were going to do our flight raids over top of Saudi Arabia. So they were going to tanker, fly over, and join the rest of the coalition. So they were waiting for us to get there. So that's when Desert Storm started.
Oh, that's crazy.
Because there was 3 other carriers over there. There was 2 from the West Coast and 1 from the East Coast. I think it was the America, Ranger, and Independent, Saratoga.
Yeah.
So that was one of the rare times you actually had 4 carriers that were in the same vicinity at one time.
And the carrier, what, has a population of what, 5,000 people or something?
About
3,000.
I think if I was mistaken, I thought ours had about 6,000.
Oh,
really?
Wow.
Okay.
But now, because remember, I have a fossil fuel carrier, so that takes a lot more work to get that thing going.
Well, I mean, if you really think about it, if you really sit back and think about it, and you think about everything that we did back then, and they trusted with us, they were a bunch of freaking idiots. I mean, really, because I mean, you're brand new and you're doing something you ain't never done before. And it's just like, oh, get your hands dirty, go right to it, do it. And see,
I mean, you have to have a good team, though. I mean, like I said, that's why they start you on the morning. That's why they start you on the day shift, so you can get the layout of the ship. And because at nighttime, that's a totally different world. You've got your goggles on, you've got your helmet on, and God help if you got a scratch on her, because that just radiates the light that's coming from the carrier. The only thing you got is, we don't got bright white lights at the stadium. It's the orange lights. Everything is orange light at night in the hangar bay, on the flight deck. And when the planes come, they start to dim them a little bit. So all you see is the landing lights. So it does complicate, because there's a lot of shadows. And if there's no moon out, well, we're really screwed for, you're feeling your way around, because the aircraft that are tied down, there's big old chains that come down from the landing gear. There's ones on the nose gear. There's ones on the landing gear. And if you're not paying attention, you trip over one of those. Your toolbox goes flying. You fall down. yeah, it could be dangerous. We actually had a pilot that fell off he fell off the ship, but he landed on the Sidewinder station. There's
Oh,
missile stations on the side of the
yeah.
ship. There's the what they call the R2D2. That was the Gatling gun one.
Yeah, those things are awesome.
The Vulcan cannon. But then they also have the Sidewinder stations on the side. And the pilot actually was doing a walk around on the plane that night, and he actually fell off. He slipped and he fell off the side of the ship, and he landed on top of that Sparrow station. Luckily, he didn't bounce off of that into the water, but they couldn't find him. He disappeared, and they're like, "Hey, where's this guy at?" We didn't hear anybody fall into the water, and they're all looking around, and so he was laying unconscious on top of the Sparrow station.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Like I told John, I seen a guy drive a forklift right off the side of a supply ship on a flight deck into the water.
We had a guy do that with an aircraft tug. The tugs that pull the airplane.
Yeah.
Some of them have what they call a huffer on her, which is an air start unit. It's like basically a small jet engine that blows hot air into the F-14s. I guess he didn't put the brake on it properly. He put it and it went right off the side, and they had to do a man overboard because they didn't realize if somebody was on there or not. Now, I mean, around the outside of the carrier, all the way around, there is a metal net that's probably about 4 feet wide, and it's got bars and it's got like a metal mesh net. If you fall into that, it's going to hurt you. I mean, but it will save your life. But that tug just went right over there and boom, into the water.
Damn, that's crazy.
So yeah,
that's the waters. Hell no.
So back going through the Red Sea, like I said, that was nerve wracking because the scary part is we never gone through it at nighttime, and like I said, it's dark. One side is Egypt, which is all desert over there. The other side is Saudi Arabia, so there's little villages and stuff like that. Well, I don't know if they knew we were coming or not, but there was loudspeakers like in the towns, and we heard the chanting of the religious chanting. We hear that at midnight, and we're like, "Oh shit, we're going to be under attack here." We're sitting ducks because there's no defense when you go through the Suez Canal.
Wow,
you're basically moving. Yeah, I mean, you have a couple of helos that are standing by, but you don't have any planes that are circling around. You have maybe a ship in front of you and a ship behind you, but that's why they had to disguise a ship at nighttime, because we were getting ready to go to war.
Now, did y'all ever turn around and go through the Persian Gulf? Did you ever go into the Persian Gulf?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, eventually while Desert Storm. So we got into the Red Sea. We got over there. We were doing sorties, and as we were doing the sorties and they were refueling, we kept extending our range. So they were coming further south. So all of our planes would meet up and with the coalition. Eventually we swung around, and then we came into the Persian Gulf with the rest of them. I think it took a couple of days.
And then you had to worry about Iran on the other side.
Well, the thing is we didn't know it, but I mean, you've got 4 aircraft carriers. I mean, yeah, it's a big area, but when you've got that much stuff going on it gets really small and it gets very crowded very fast, because a carrier needs lots of space to get the planes off the deck. You got to be into the wind, and you got to maintain that constant. And, like I said, that was very unique at that time.
Yeah. I remember when we went through, our command officer said, and, and your captain is as only good. Well, your crew is only good as the captain. And our captain, he was so gung-ho on seeing mines in the water. He was gung-ho on, man, we're going to war. I mean, this dude was excited. And I'm over there like a, 19-year-old kid going, what the hell are you so happy about? Well, it's crazy because it's
he's going to do what you're all trained to do, or what we're trained to do, right? I mean, that's right, because he's going to get to do his job.
Right. Well, John, I can tell you practice. That's all you do. And when it's time for the real thing to happen, you do it. You just know it. It's amazing how well they can train you.
Yeah.
You don't realize how well you do.
I do understand. I've been there, done that. I mean, those of us You know what? There was a gentleman at the gas station today. He is. I could see he was a veteran. I couldn't see the sticker or which branch, and I said, "Veteran, right? What branch?" He said, "Navy." I said, "Oh, I got a buddy that's a Navy." He says, "Smart man." He's a pretty good sized guy, and we didn't get to really talk much. My wife was coming back out of the convenience store, but I was like, it's just, it's nice. I mentioned that because it's nice when you see somebody. My wife goes, "You talked to him?" I said, "Yeah, I could see that he was a veteran." I mean, she said, "You just try and ask everybody if they're military." I said, "No. If they're identifying themselves through a sticker or some of their clothing or something, then they're a veteran. As soon as they understand that you're a veteran, it's easy to have a conversation. You just talk about stuff."
Oh
And
yeah.
so
And
that's so much fun for me. I enjoy it. And they're gentlemen that I got rid of a few things here today. And the gentleman stopped by. He himself wasn't a veteran, but he come from a veteran family. And even the veteran families, I mean, they know they didn't serve themselves, but I'm intrigued about aircraft carriers. So what? So Karl, you said you don't ever get to see the whole ship really because it's so monstrous. I've never seen aircraft carrier. Hell, I've barely
Mhm.
seen any ship, so I'm super intrigued about that. I mean, here in the Midwest, so I told you I'm way north in Iowa. You guys are both in Texas, so you probably
Mhm.
have an opportunity to see that stuff more often. But um, it's just, did you guys lose any planes while you were out there during the Gulf
Uh,
War, or no?
well, see, the thing is we do. Unfortunately, you're going to lose personnel and you're going to lose aircraft. It's the nature of the beast. So, like I said, I was in from 88, well, actually 89 to 92. I mean, I went in at 88, but wasn't in a squadron until May of 88 or 89. Um, but each time we go out, you're not going to come back with a full complement. Now that means either people are coming in as the ship is deployed, or they're getting out or transferring to another squadron or shore duty or whatever. But there's always accidents, and that's one thing that we always trained for. Even though I was aviation ordnance, we would practice like rig the barricade. Now that's when the plane there's something wrong with it, and they have to put this fabric. I mean, it's amazing that what they spend on the aircraft and stuff like that. That the simplest thing is you have like basically it looks like a bunch of fire hoses, and they put it vertical. It goes where the landing area is, and they actually catch that plane if there's a problem with it.
oh, so
Okay.
that is
We've had
real. I've always
that
wondered
is
that
yeah,
because and
yeah.
like we got to see it was after Desert Storm and the Independence did a show for our ship because we
Hmm.
basically were the ones supplying them. So their command officer was like, "Hey, we're going to do a show," and they did touch and goes. I'm going to tell you something. It was cool on my end, but all the people
Hmm.
standing up on that desk going, "This is a you." I know they were going, "This is a bunch of bull crap," because it's hot and we shouldn't be doing this. We should all be relaxing. But their
Hmm.
cat wanted to do an air show. It was really cool. But I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
I commended a lot of the guys who are on aircraft carriers because man, they were always up on that deck all day long and it was hot. And I was just
Well,
like,
I would say, well, the thing is yes, you're in the Indian Ocean. Um, you got steel tip boots, um, and it's black. It's greasy up there. Like I said, we had a fossil fuel carrier. Ours was the Enterprise was made. That's CV-65. Ours was 66, and I think Forstall was 67. That's because Enterprise cost so much to make that they went back and they America and Forstall were supposed to be nuclear carriers too, but it just cost so much to make Enterprise. So the thing is you've got jet fuel, you've got the carrier, which is a fossil fuel, so you've got all that smoke coming off you. I worked the CAG arm D arm, so like when we say you see Top Gun, you got the guys up there rolling stuff around and they're up on the airplanes. I was actually in that with the weapons because we had to go as soon as that plane got on the catapult, and it doesn't matter what squadron it was, we all had to know all the airplanes. Is you had to arm the weapons. There was arming the weapons when they're sitting like when they're doing the pre-checks and stuff. But when they come up to um, the catapult, and there's 4 catapults, so you have to have a crew on each one of those. Is you're
There's
part of the
four
CAG arm D arm
catapults?
team.
4?
Yes, 2 bow and 2
Wow.
waist cats. Now they
Okay.
can't. And the thing is they've tried to do that where they try to launch pretty much 3 out of the 4 they can do. The 2 bow cats, I mean the bow cats they can do at the same time, but the waist cats, which are on the other side of the island, they can only do 1 at a time because they cross over really. And of course, the steam is what generates them. Now they're electromechanical, but back then, that's another thing is you have to with nuclear carriers, it's much easier to boil the water. You just have with a fossil fuel carrier, you have to have boilers to for steam catapults. Now you're not going to see that anymore in the new carriers. The Top Gun with all the steam coming off you as the plane takes off. Ooh, feels cool and all that. But that's not going to be there anymore. That's gone because the new electromechanical catapults. So that's like I said, when you were saying 3,000 people, it might be that now. I don't know the exact number, but I think it was 6,000 because being an older ship, there's more things that to maintain. I mean, that thing was built back in the 60s, and
And this might be a stupid question here again. I don't know. I'm assuming male and female. Male and female, I'm assuming, because it's no, really.
Back then there was no females. Nope, not on a combat ship. Not on a combat ship. Now, I think after I got out, that started changing, but on my time there was not one female on a combat ship.
Wow. Okay, so I would have got that wrong. I would not have guessed that. 3,000 or however many?
There was ones on yours though, right, Kevin? There was ones on yours.
There was only a couple, but
yep.
But they just got on there right before we went. But here's my question: y'all weren't considered a warship? Y'all were considered a combat ship?
A combat carrier, yes.
Really?
Now, wait a second. Hold on. What do you mean warship versus combat ship? What the hell's the difference? You're all at war.
I'll explain this one to them. So
yeah, please do.
Well, a combat ship is a ship that can fight in combat and is ready for combat. Okay, like if they're being attacked, they can at least fight back. A warship does the war. It's the ones that go in, they send all the missiles out, they do all that stuff. So there's a difference between a combat and a warship. And
still in today's world, is that still the case, you think?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Because supply ships are considered combat. And destroyer is considered a warship. I just never thought I would consider aircraft carrier a warship. And
I guess you can say that. The thing is an aircraft carrier, it's an offense and defensive weapon. I mean, you figure the main thing with the carrier is it has all these fighter jets on there and helicopters. Once they go out, the carrier is basically it has to be in support of all the fast frigates and the missile guided cruisers and the submarines, because it's basically defenseless. It has some Sea Sparrows on it and the phalanx system on there, but once the planes go away,
being an aircraft carrier, here again, Army guy, so I apologize for my ignorance, but you would have submarines or something going close by to protect you.
Are you kidding me? They were surrounded by everything, man. They were it was like I'm going to just say it. They were the loved ship out there. Them aircraft carriers had ships all the way around them guarding them.
Okay. That's what I see when I see it on TV. Right. That's what I see. But I asked the question because I don't know. I mean,
you can like pull it up, like say aircraft carrier group. It was a group. There was a group that
we called it an air wing.
Air wing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the combat, and like you said, it's called the carrier air group, or CAG, which he's basically the commander of all those ships. Is so like the spearhead of it is the carrier. So you have smaller ships or like fast frigates, you have missile guided cruisers, and but in Desert Storm we had battleships still.
Yes.
They brought the battleships out, the last of the
USS
battleships.
Missouri was out there.
So in today's
but-
world, if it's not a battleship, what would it be? I mean, what would be the kind of thing that's going to protect like an aircraft carrier? I mean, if it,
frigates, all
All
that.
destroyer, missile guided cruiser, fast frigate.
now when you say, okay,
but-
humor me a little bit. If here again,
Sure.
destroyer versus whatever else. Destroyer meaning what? Has the big guns on it?
Each ship has a role. I mean, like your missile guided cruiser, that's one that's that takes out the tomahawks. Those are ones that take out your maybe your radar installation stations or whatever. Your destroyers are going to possibly they got the bigger guns on there, so they might, like, maybe if there's a ship that's coming close to you, they would take that out.
Okay.
I think they're 5-inch guns on there. They would use those two. So, and the thing is, we would actually have like Greenpeace come out there, and we'd have to you have to create a bubble around the aircraft carrier. And of course, what you were saying is we had 2 submarines, but we never saw them. They would just disappear. But there was part of our training is they would have, like, when we do a NATO testing and stuff like that. There was one where NATO would send like maybe a German submarine or something like that and try to sink the carrier. And if the German submarine popped up right beside the carrier, then we were sunk.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Hey, man, you see a submarine. They're popping sonobuoys off the helicopters, and they got the S3 Vikings. Now all these planes that I'm talking about they're all retired because the F-18 E's and F Rhinos have been taken over. So now you have a much more refined logistic system where you had this type of plane, this type of plane, this type of helicopter. So that was the big problem back then, is you had to get everybody lined up, and it was a logistic nightmare, because even the plane that I had on, the F-14 at that time, it was 40 man hours per every flight hour. And that's what killed the airplane until they upgraded the engines. But you're talking 60s technology in the F-14. Now, you could change out box and stuff like that, but the airframe is still the same. And landing on that carrier just really, it shortened the life of them. That's why when you see like an Air Force F-16, I mean, that's why those planes can last for so long, is because they don't get the stress of landing on that carrier going, 200 miles an hour or 200 knots, and then boom, stopping within 100 feet or whatever with the resting cable.
And how I know we're running close to the end of this podcast, but let me ask you this: how often would the pilots not be able to land and have to go off the other side? Was that common, or is that not so common? If they couldn't land,
that's called a bolter.
A bolter.
So we had there was a bolter. So basically, you've got the lens officer, which is you see in the movies where they're doing this. They don't do that anymore. There's not the guy out there. It's basically a lens. It's a light system. It's on the carrier, and you got the guy like showing the Top Gun. He's got the little trigger like that. He's talking to the pilot, and he's like up or down, up or down. And if he gets where he's not comfortable, they'll say wave off, and then he'll just basically pull up and go straight up and go out. Now there's times where he's landing and so the ship is pitching up and down. It's not a perfectly flat. And they say you're landing on basically a postage stamp. That's what they associate that with. A moving postage stamp at night is they may miss that wire. They might miss one of those wires. There's three cables, and like I said, they're probably about that big.
That's huge.
So you've got this tail hook. It's probably about this big, and that's what catches it. It comes down, and then there's the little. It looks like a calf's foot basically, and it's got a little trough in there. I actually have one, but I didn't have it.
Okay. All right.
But it catches that plane. I mean, even Air Force has one on theirs. The F-15s have a hook, but that's if they land with an emergency on. They're not supposed to come on a carrier because they don't have the means to take back off again.
Okay.
But they'll do a bolter if they don't catch that wire. Say the plane bounces or something like that, or if they're not lined up right, they're coming in full throttle, and they're basically all their flaps are down and their elevators are down like this. So if they miss, boom, they're ready to go again. So they basically are like crash landing. They catch that wire, they're still going full speed. That wire catches them, and then boom, they give them the signal. They cut the engines. They tell them to put their tail hook up. They pull the wire back, and then they zip them right off the carrier into the category dearm area. So then they put all the pins in the missiles, and voila, go over there, go refuel, go rearm, whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, don't go ahead, John, because I don't know anything about what everything he's saying is new to me too. Because
Sure.
I was on supply. I was on a supply ship. I wasn't on an aircraft carrier. But I will say this though: the only ship I ever saw that had a gun on it was the flagship, and that usually carries your admiral, the top dog. Okay. But I never saw guns on a flagship. And I'm thinking to myself, of course he's protected because he's by the aircraft carrier. But
of course,
yeah, and so it was pretty strange not to see. I mean, I'm sure they probably have something I don't know about. And back then it was the USS Blue Ridge, I believe was the ship. But I tell you what, Karl, man, I learned more about you today than I have cutting your hair. Son of a gun. Man, I mean, that sounds like work, doesn't it, John?
That's good. That's because you're so fast, Kevin. I ain't got time to talk to you.
I mean, that is a good point. I am pretty quick.
You don't have to make his ego any bigger, Karl.
No, but I mean, it is cool to learn about different stuff. Even me being in the Navy, I didn't know anything. This is all new for me. I had no idea. You know, I knew what he did, but I didn't really understand it.
I mean, I'm just. You don't know, most Army guys, I would say, learn something. You even, Kevin, because I mean, so Karl, I really enjoyed this visit because I'm the guy that asks the questions. I'm not going to pretend I know because that's just BS. I don't know. If I don't know, I'm going to ask. To a point. I'm not trying not to be annoying and ask too many questions, but I mean, it's intriguing to us. I mean, because you you have a interesting insight because you were on an aircraft carrier. It's not just you saw one out at sea. That's what you did for your time in service. So
and I think this is exciting. I mean, I am. I think for being a Navy, about an aircraft carrier is one of the most interesting podcasts I think we've done. Yeah, because we got more of an insight of what y'all do on there compared to what others do. It sounds. I mean, I'll give it to y'all. Y'all are always working. Every time I look over there is always somebody on that flight that working.
Yeah, while Kevin was at the McDonald's chuffing down fries, you guys were busting your hump.
Yeah, but I had to have kidney stones for that to get on the Independence.
Well, we did get to go to the bowling alley and the wave pool. Okay.
Y'all better not have no damn bowling alley. Man, I'm telling you right now.
No.
But it's the little stuff we learn in life that makes it so cool. And this is what the show's about. It's about what we did over there. And everybody has their own story of what it was like and what they did. And I mean, I can tell you, Karl, thank you for coming on. And
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I would like to, get a pilot on here and talk about landing and what it was like, and I'm looking for it. But if anybody wanted to get a hold of us, you can get it at Kevin Simon at goldforcesideffects.com. Also, just let everybody know we are in our new location. It's not completely set up yet. Hopefully next week we're going to have it completely set up. Karl, you're the first one at the new location, so feel honored.
Yay, thank you. Appreciate it.
And I appreciate you coming on. And I appreciate everything. Appreciate your business, of course. Got to say that. Y'all go check us out on YouTube, catch up on our latest episodes. And also we have shorts. And shorts are where we take the conversations and cut them down to being short. And so that way people can go check them out and learn different things about what everybody did out there, which I think is fantastic. But right now, we're going to go into the after the show. And, y'all have a great night. Karl, thank you for coming on. John, thank you for coming on. And we'll see y'all next week.
See you, everybody.